Hello and welcome to a special edition of Thick Slices and Deep Cuts. Tonight I will be ranking the classic era of King Diamond, specifically the first 5 albums. King Diamond goes back all the way to the very early 80s. He was in a band called Mercyful Fate out of Copenhagen, Denmark. They played a dark brand of classic metal, new wave of British heavy metal, but with a darker twist. When that band ceased in 1985, he began his career with the band known as King Diamond. Andy LaRoe, he brought Michael Denner and Timmy Hansen with him from Mercyful Fate. He had the excellent Mickey D on drums. And that was the lineup to begin things. So I'm just going to be ranking the classic era. This is 86 to 90. So he did 5 albums in 5 years before taking a break. And I'll cover a little bit of that as well. But so we have the first 5 albums to rank. I just want to say that all 5 of these albums are absolute classics. And I pretty much knew my top 2. I pretty much knew my top 3, and definitely my top 2, and so the only ones that I really had trouble ranking were 5 and 4, because they're both excellent. So we'll just go ahead and get started here. Coming in at number 5, this is a classic, and I'm sure some people may say this is their favorite one from King and Company. From 1989, his 4th album, I have Conspiracy. It's tough to rank this 5 out of 5 because it's just absolutely stunning. You still have, there are a few lineup changes at this point. So the lineup here is King Diamond with Andy LaRoe as always. You still have Mickey D on drums, but he's just as a session drummer on this. You've got Pete Black on the other guitar, he's a great shredder, and you've got Hal Patino on bass. This is right around the time that I got into King Diamond. They had a video for Sleepless Nights. At the Graves is like an 8-minute song, maybe a 9-minute song. It's very complex and melodic. Lies, A Visit from the Dead, The Wedding Dream, Amon Belongs to Them, Victimized. The only reason I rank this 5th is because this storyline is a continuation of the story on the album prior to this. So you're not necessarily getting a brand new story here. The concept is part 2 of a concept on the prior album, which I'll get to in a little bit. Again, the reason I wanted to rank these first 5 King Diamond albums is simply because they're all classics. And it's late in October, and this is the time to rank these great albums. So coming in at number 5, a classic, I have 1989's Conspiracy. Okay, coming in at number 4. This is a fairly underrated album. His 5th album from 1990, I've got The Eye. This album I really dig. It's got that creepy vibe, that great creepy haunting vibe that King is known for. It's my understanding this isn't a concept, it's just a bunch of individual songs that are sort of connected by this necklace, the eye. But it's loosely based around stories from the French Inquisition and also the Salem witch trials. So you've just got classics like Trial, Behind These Walls has a creepy harpsichord, The Meetings is creepy, Father Picard, 1642 Imprisonment. There's a nice little instrumental called Insanity, which is really cool. This is King Diamond and his band. At this point, you no longer have Mickey D, but you have Snowy Shaw on drums. Rumor has it that this was done with a drum machine, but King once said that he had Snowy play an electronic drum kit for consistency in the sound. So I think Snowy plays on this, it's just that it's an electronic drum kit. But just a dark, just another hauntingly awesome album from King. Like I said, I think it's fairly underrated. Burn is a good one. Again, this is just an absolute gem and a must-own. This was the last one that King and company released for 5 years. So coming in at number 4 from 1990, his 5th album, The Eye. Okay, coming in at number 3, this one is an absolute gem. This was the first one that he put out as King Diamond. We have Fatal Portrait from 1986. So this is the most Mercyful Fate sounding of the album. So he's got Mercyful Fate ends because the main songwriter in that band wanted to go in a more mainstream direction, and so King said, "I'm not going to do that. We're Mercyful Fate. We're dark. If you're not going to do that, I'll continue as King Diamond and continue the Mercyful Fate style." So he brings Michael Denner and Timmy Hansen with him. So he's got one guitarist and the bass player. So you've got 3/5 of Mercyful Fate here. He brings in Mickey D on drums, who's a monster on drums, and he brings in Andy LaRocque. At this point in the game, Andy's only providing solos and rhythms. He is not writing any of the music at this point, which is why this is very much Mercyful Fate sounding. But just great. And this has a story, the first side, so if you have this on vinyl, the first side has 4 songs. The Candle, which we heard open, the Jonah, the Portrait, Dressed in White, and then the final track, you got to skip to the last track on the last side called Haunted. So those first 4 in the last track, those 5 tracks create a story about, I think it's about a woman who locks her child up in the attic and then it dies and it comes back to haunt her until she is no longer with us. But I can't say enough about The Candle, the Jonah, the Portrait, and Haunted. Charon is great. Halloween, I probably should have put that track on here because we're approaching that wonderful holiday. But this is, I can't say enough about the first 5 King Diamond albums, and this is an absolute gem. I knew this was my number 3. Like I said, I kind of knew my top 2. I pretty much knew the order I was going to put them in as well, and I knew my 3. And I knew this was going to be good when I had Conspiracy at number 5 of 5, because that's a heck of an album. So, coming in at number 3, the first one, the most Mercyful Fate sounding one, from 1986, we have Fatal Portrait. Okay. Coming in at number 2, I think this is probably most people's number 2. It could be their number 1. It's an absolute perfect album. King Diamond has 2 perfect albums in my opinion, but at number 2 I have from 1988, Them, the 3rd album that he released. This is the first one with Pete Black and Hal Patino in the band. You still have Mickey D and Andy LaRocque. This is a great lineup. I like the Fatal Portrait lineup a lot, and I love this lineup as well. What can I say? Just a great story. King and his sister go to meet Grandma at her house, that psycho-looking house, the haunted house. He likes those haunted mansion types of themes. It's got good storytelling. It's got an intro. It's got an outro. It's got the whole creepy vibe. What can I say? Welcome Home, The Invisible Guest, Bye Bye Missy, The Accusation Chair, Twilight Symphony. Am I forgetting any other classics? A Broken Spell. It's just a perfect album. If you want to rank this one number 1, I got no problems with that. This is an absolute beast of an album. I love the production on this. I just think that right from the get-go, Mickey D's drum fill to open it, his drums sound great. The guitars and bass just sound specterish. It's just, the whole production for this works. These early albums really showcase King Diamond's vocal range. He's just all over the place. He's doing the dark, creepy, grimacing vocals, and he's just singing so high and with awesome harmonies, and just he's all over the place. Andy LaRocque at this point is writing a lot of the music for the band. I don't want to say this is progressive, but it's just the craftsmanship of the musicians involved here, and the creativity and the originality. And just King is one of a kind. So original. Andy LaRocque's just a monster, shredding, excellent guitar player, as is Pete Black. Mickey D is a great drummer. Al Patino is obviously good enough to hang with all of these guys. So at number 2, from 1988, an absolute classic, I have Them. And this song is from that album. And at number 1, and I think this is the consensus number 1 pick. I think it's the first thing I heard from him. I may have heard Them first, but his second album from 1987, I have Abigail. Just another great, creepy, just a perfectly played album. This is the second album and the last to feature that early lineup from Fatal Portrait. So the primarily Mercyful Fate lineup, but at this point on the second album, Andy LaRocque is now writing quite a bit of the material, and you can just sense that the band went from Fatal Portrait to Abigail. They just went from really damn good to incredible. And right on their second album, they just hit perfection. Got a creepy intro like many of his albums, but it's just all the songs: Arrival, A Mansion of Darkness, The Family Ghost, The Seventh Day of July 1777, Omens, Possession, Abigail, Black Horseman. All these songs are great. They're just really well crafted. You've got 12-string acoustics, you've got odd time signatures, you've got incredible unrelenting drumming from Mickey D. You've got just great guitar soloing back and forth. King Diamond's voice is just in its prime on this. And the story is Miriam Matthias and Jonathan LaFay move into their new mansion that they inherited out in the countryside. I think it's in the 1800s. Well, maybe a century before that, or 80 years prior to that, there was a woman there that had a baby and killed it or something, and that baby's name was Abigail. And so Abigail comes back and, just haunts the house and possesses Miriam, and it's quite the creepy tale. So just, again, great storytelling. Just, what an absolute gem of an album. King Diamond is so original. He is just untouched. He is untouched in the music world. So at number 1, the second album from 1987, I have Abigail. So real quickly to rank the 5, all classics, all ones. At number 5, I have the fourth album from 1989, I have Conspiracy. At number 4 from 1990, I have the fifth album, The Eye. At number 3, I have the debut album from 86, I have Fatal Portrait. At number 2 from 1988, I have Them. And at number 1 from 1987, I have Abigail. So that is ranking the 5 classic albums of King Diamond from 86 to 90. I do want to say that he released this album in 1995 in his comeback. It was called Spider's Lullaby. And it had a mostly different line of Andy LaRocque is still here, but his vocals are a little more subdued at this point. 5 years have passed, and he had restarted his band Mercyful Fate during this time. So it's a slightly different sound from the original 5. And speaking of Mercyful Fate, I have a few of those things to share with you as well. Hold on, my phone is ringing.
I know who you are.
We're sorry, the number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number or try your call again. This is a recording.
Okay. Must have been the telemarketer. Okay, so before King Diamond got started, he was in a band called Mercyful Fate. They had two iconic albums that every time I hear an interview with Metallica or Slayer or just a ton of those types of thrash bands or whoever from a little bit later in the 80s, they always cite early Mercyful Fate. Specifically their first album from 83, Melissa. There's King on the back. And 1984's Don't Break the Oath. These were the two full lengths. They also had an EP that had some songs. These do contain quite a few classics. Evil, Curse of the Pharaohs, Into the Coven. You know. What's this one have? A Dangerous Meeting, The Oath, Come to the Sabbath. Just lots of good stuff. You know, later on they released the that debut EP and then also some tracks from even earlier on, like 81, 82, called Return of the Vampire. So this has some demos from 81 and early 82. The self-titled EP came out in 82, late 82, and then they recorded albums in 83 and 84. So they were doing quite a bit there. The first 3 or 4 years of the decade there, 81 to 84. And then I really enjoy, they reformed after splitting in 85. They reformed in the early 90s, which is probably why King Diamond was sort of not on hiatus, but there was 5 years between albums because he restarted Mercyful Fate. I don't know if you can see that cover, but In the Shadows is my personal favorite Mercyful Fate album. It's got the classic lineup, except Snowy Shaw from The Eye of King Diamond is the drummer on this. Although he didn't record drums in the studio, but he is the drummer at this point. This album reminds me of that movie Sleepy Hollow that came out, I think, in like 1999 or so. It's got that good haunted, creepy vibe, and I just love the songs. Egypt had a video, but my favorite Mercyful Fate song is The Bell Witch. The Old Oak, Shadows, A Gruesome Time, The Room of Golden Air, 13 Invitations, The Legend of the Headless Rider. Is That You, Melissa is a callback to the first album. And they do a re-recording of the song Return to the Vampire from the early demo days. And Lars Ulrich, of all people, plays drums on here. So Lars and King are both from Copenhagen, Denmark originally, so the connection there. And Metallica has covered Mercyful Fate, so you know, when you have connections like Lars in your Mercyful Fate, you may as well see if Lars wants to come in and record drums, and he did on here, so that's pretty cool. So there you go. That's ranking the albums of King Diamond, and then just you can't talk about early King Diamond without mentioning early Mercyful Fate, which came back in the 90s and I think they did 5 albums in the 90s, and again, King Diamond, after a 5-year hiatus, put out The Spider's Lullaby in 95, The Graveyard in 96, Voodoo in 98, where there's a Dimebag Darrell guitar solo on there. And then he did a few more, I think he did 4 more in the 2000s. Both bands are still technically active, but he's not necessarily releasing any new studio material, but just a one-of-a-kind musician, performer. His bands are great, and just everything. Hold on, I've got to take this call.
Don't you dare hang up.
Okay. I think that was just a wrong number. So there you have it. King Diamond. The one, the only. And, this damn phone.
Come with me to the grave.
The grave? What's he talking about? What is this guy talking about? Okay, alright.
Coming for you.
Okay, that's funny. This is funny. Okay. I wish I had caller ID on this phone. I'd figure out who you were. Jesus, I really need to get the... Okay.
Look behind you.
Okay. Alright, I'm unplugging this landline phone. Okay, so thanks for watching this special episode of ranking the albums of King Diamond. So there you have it. I will see you next time.
Who's this?
It's your grandmother.
You're dead.
In a way, yes. Now listen. Are you still there?
I'm still here, Grand. Yes.
Come to the old house tonight. There's quite a few people here who would love to see you.
It's starting all over again.